Hey everyone! Welcome to the Bold and Beautiful 24. I'm Alessio, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Bold and Beautiful, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. Will panics over baby news, Bill doubts Luna's claims. Will Spencer will panic over the news of the baby, according to the spoilers for Thursday, September 18th, while Bill Spencer doubts Luna Nozawa's claims. When Luna finally received the news that she was pregnant, she was terrified of being dragged back to prison at Lee Finnegan's apartment. After Luna's positive pregnancy test spilled out of her bag, she grinned and announced she's having Will's baby. Will undoubtedly go into panic mode as he tries to comprehend this. Will may appear to be in denial and argue that this cannot be taking place. Given how Luna operates, Bill will undoubtedly share his skepticism. Since Luna faked the DNA test that once made Bill believe he was her father, he may think this positive pregnancy test is just more of her trickery. However, Luna seemed genuinely caught off guard by the positive result. Although this is everything Luna's been hoping for, seeing the pregnant outcome on that stick still threw her for a loop. Luna will stick to her pregnancy story despite any doubts she faces from Bill, Will and Katie Logan. Lee will have a chance to weigh in on all this as well, but Luna will think the positive result speaks for itself here. According to BNB spoilers, Luna intends to use this as a leverage tactic in the hope of avoiding a return to jail. Since Luna is now carrying precious Spencer cargo, she'll repeatedly remind Bill of that and push for his protection, for the baby's sake if nothing else. As for Sheila Sharp and Deacon Sharp, they'll share some cute, flirty moments together. It'll be the show's way of giving Deacon and Sheila a little more peace before some Luna chaos blows up. Over with Electra Forrester, she'll plan a romantic night with Will and look forward to giving him the personalized jewelry she's been working on. Electra made a special piece with their initials on it, which she hopes to give to Will to show her appreciation for their love. According to the spoilers for the upcoming episodes of The Bold and the Beautiful, Will's celebration will be dampened by Luna's pregnancy revelation, so keep an eye out for updates on how he will deal with the drama. At Lee Finnegan's small but meticulously kept apartment, the atmosphere shifted in an instant from tense confrontation to life-altering revelation, a kind of thunderbolt moment that even the most seasoned members of this twisted family saga couldn't have predicted, and it all began with something as ordinary as a little white plastic stick spilling out of Luna Nozawa's overstuffed purse, landing on the floor like an omen that nobody in that room was prepared to face, least of all Luna herself, who had been spiraling between terror and determination for days, knowing she might be dragged back into prison, knowing her freedom and her very future were hanging by the thinnest of threads, and yet, there it was, undeniable, bold letters on the test strip announcing a positive pregnancy result that she herself had longed for yet somehow didn't believe would actually materialize, and as the reality sank in, her lips curved into a grin, trembling with a mix of triumph and shock, before she blurted out the words that detonated like a bomb in the already fragile dynamic. She was pregnant, and the baby was Will Spencer's, a revelation that immediately shattered the stillness of the room and set off an emotional chain reaction that not even the most scheming Forrester, Logan, or Spencer could have orchestrated, because Will, still so young, still finding his place in this complicated legacy of money, power, and betrayal, froze like he had been blindsided by a truck, his face cycling rapidly through disbelief, horror, panic, and finally outright denial as he staggered back, shaking his head, insisting over and over that this couldn't be real, that it had to be a mistake, that Luna had to be lying because the alternative, that he, barely a man, was about to become a father, was simply too overwhelming to process, and Bill Spencer, the patriarch whose ruthless instincts rarely failed him, immediately narrowed his eyes and crossed his arms, because if there was one thing Bill knew about Luna, it was that she had a history of manipulation, lies, and desperate plays to secure her place in the lives of powerful men, and the memory of that fake DNA test she once dangled in front of him, the one that had convinced him, even for a fleeting, agonizing moment, that he might be her father, was still fresh enough to make his stomach twist with disgust. So his first instinct was to dismiss this so-called pregnancy news as just another trick, another con designed to save Luna from the prison sentence that still loomed over her, another card in her endless deck of schemes. But this time, Bill found himself staring at Luna a little differently, because as much as he wanted to believe she was making it all up, there was something raw in her expression, something unscripted in the way her hand shook as she held that test, Something even she couldn't disguise in the way her breath hitched when the result became undeniable, and though this pregnancy was exactly what she had been hoping for, the truth was, even Luna seemed rattled by it, as if fate had yanked control from her manipulative hands and reminded her that even she could still be blindsided by life. Yet no matter what doubts Bill hurled at her, no matter how frantically Will tried to push back, Luna stood firm, her voice steadying as she declared that she was pregnant and carrying Will's child. And if anyone wanted to question her or dismiss her or throw her back in a cell, they would now have to reckon with the fact that she carried a Spencer heir inside of her, and that alone, she insisted, changed everything, because if Bill was the ruthless protector of his family that he claimed to be, then surely he would not let the mother of his grandchild rot behind bars, surely he would rise to the occasion and provide her the shield she so desperately needed, not for her sake, but for the innocent life growing inside her. A strategy that was part genuine desperation and part cold calculation. Because Luna knew the Spencer name carried weight and that Bill, for all his skepticism, was not a man who turned his back on blood, but still, the room was thick with doubt, with Will practically trembling from the pressure of the news, his youth crashing up against adult responsibility in a way that left him pale and gasping, while Bill's silence felt like a storm cloud ready to burst. And then there was Lee, the woman who had spent so long despising Luna, whose medical eye and clinical logic gave her a different kind of authority, and though Luna held the test like a weapon and insisted it spoke for itself, Lee's expression remained unreadable, the tension in her jaw suggesting she wasn't about to take Luna's word for anything without proof. But as this chaos built, as the accusations and counter-accusations swirled, there was an undercurrent of fear in Luna's tone, because beneath all her bravado, she understood the stakes perfectly. This pregnancy might be the only thing standing between her and prison, the only leverage she had left to twist Bill's doubts into protection, and she wasn't about to let it go to waste, even as her mind reeled from the enormity of what had just happened. And while this battle played out in Lee's apartment, across town, another story unfolded in stark contrast, with Deacon Sharp and Sheila Carter, two people who had clawed their way back from scandal after scandal, sharing a rare pocket of peace, indulging in flirty banter and tender touches. A moment of lightness and romance that the universe seemed determined to snatch away from them sooner rather than later, because they too would soon be pulled into the orbit of Luna's chaos. And still further across the city, Electra Forrester, oblivious to the storm about to break over her world, was preparing a night of love and intimacy for Will, polishing the final details of a gift she had poured her heart into. A custom piece of jewelry etched with their initials, something symbolic, something permanent, something meant to celebrate their young, fiery connection, and she was giddy with anticipation, imagining the look on Will's face when she surprised him, completely unaware that Will's world was already unraveling, that the girl she considered a rival had just detonated a truth bomb that would not only derail her romantic evening but potentially obliterate everything she thought she had with him. Because once the words "I'm having Will's baby" were out in the open, there was no stuffing them back inside, no pretending life could go back to normal. And as the pieces fell, as Will panicked, as Bill doubted, as Luna doubled down, and as Electra unknowingly walked into heartbreak, the bold and the beautiful once again proved that no revelation comes without fallout, and no family secret stays hidden for long, especially when it involves a baby that could change the entire Spencer legacy forever. Will's panic was immediate, raw, and so unfiltered that even Luna flinched at the intensity of it, because for all the scheming she'd done to maneuver herself into this exact position, there was something terrifying about seeing the man she claimed to care about unravel so quickly before her eyes, his breathing sharp and uneven, his hands trembling as if he had just touched a live wire, muttering half-coherent fragments like, "This can't be real. It's not happening. You're lying. No, no, no," as if by sheer repetition he could rewrite the truth staring him down. And when his wide eyes darted to Bill for rescue, for reassurance, for someone older and stronger to tell him this was all just a bad dream, Bill didn't rush in with comfort but rather with a slow, heavy sigh and that skeptical glare that had intimidated titans in the business world and now bore down on Luna like a spotlight. Because Bill wasn't a man who gave in to emotions easily, his instinct was always to dissect, to analyze, to smell out the angle, and right now every fiber of his being screamed that Luna was playing him, that this was just one more elaborate charade from a woman who had a history of bending truth until it snapped. And yet there was that damn test on the floor, clear as day, undeniable in its simplicity, and for all his cynicism, Bill couldn't ignore the tremor in Luna's voice when she repeated, firmer this time, "I'm pregnant, Bill. I'm carrying Will's child," words that cut through the tension like glass, words that even Luna herself seemed to be clinging to as though repeating them out loud would anchor her to this new reality. And then there was Lee, standing stiffly with her arms crossed, her sharp eyes flicking from the test to Luna's pale face, her mind ticking through medical protocols and probabilities, because unlike Bill, Her doubt didn't come from past betrayals but from cold, clinical detachment she knew false. Positives existed, she knew emotions could cloud judgment, she knew that one test was hardly proof of anything, and yet she also knew Luna well enough to see that, for once, her shock didn't look rehearsed, and that made the situation infinitely more complicated, because if Luna was telling the truth, if this child really existed, then everything about the way they'd been dealing with her, threatening, condemning, preparing to send her back behind bars, had to be recalibrated, and Luna seized on that, standing a little taller, gripping the test like it was a royal decree, insisting that Bill could doubt her all he wanted, but the science didn't lie, the baby didn't lie, and if he really considered himself the protector of his family, then now was the time to prove it, because whether he liked her or not, whether he trusted her or despised her, the fact remained that she was carrying Spencer blood, and that meant she deserved protection for the sake of the innocent life inside her. Words that made Will recoil as though she had slapped him, because he couldn't even begin to wrap his head around being called a father, the word sounding foreign and suffocating in his ears, the pressure of expectation weighing down on him until he thought he might collapse, and somewhere across the city, completely unaware of the bomb that had just detonated, Electra was humming softly to herself as she polished the silver chain that held the custom charm she'd designed, her initials entwined with Will's indelicate script, the kind of gift she believed symbolized permanence, love, commitment, a future, and she smiled as she imagined slipping it into his hand, watching his face light up, leaning in for a kiss that would seal their bond even deeper, blissfully ignorant that by the time she reached him, his world would be a crumbling mess, his heart torn in two, his loyalty questioned, his identity as a young man rewritten in the blink of an eye, because Luna's revelation was not a pebble tossed into a pond, it was a tidal wave ripping through every corner of their lives, and while Deacon and Sheila basked in the glow of their private flirtation, stealing moments of happiness they both knew were rare and fleeting, the narrative threads were already drawing them back into the chaos, because Sheila, sharp as ever, would inevitably hear the whispers, and Deacon, forever torn between wanting to protect her and wanting to protect his tenuous redemption, would find himself dragged into the maelstrom as Luna's pregnancy became the single most polarizing force in Los Angeles, sparking battles not just over her freedom but over the future of the Spencer dynasty itself, a future that Will wasn't ready to face, that Bill wasn't ready to acknowledge, that Lee wasn't ready to validate, and that Luna, with every ounce of cunning and fear and hope she possessed, was determined to secure. No matter who she had to manipulate, no matter how many bridges she had to burn, because for her, this wasn't just about a baby, it was about survival, power, and the chance to finally plant herself in the Spencer family tree in a way no one could ever rip out, even if it meant igniting a war that would consume them all.